Can I just say, people normally think I'm quite confident and cocky. Probably shouldn't swear because remember I said there was no swearing in my talk. I'm really nervous. I'm literally standing here shaking. I've spoken for probably like 10 years now. I do lectures, I talk to clients all the time. I still hate talking in public. I still do. I don't ever, this is all rubbish now I'm saying, but I don't ever do it for any other reason apart from I like to share information with people. Everything, I come from nothing, and everything I've learned has come from people being kind and sharing stuff with me. So I can give it back. Is it time to start? Yeah. Right. Okay, 2014. This is a slightly different talk, by the way. It's not my usual YouTube video of exploit after exploit after exploit, so I apologise if people think it would be that. I thought that was me then.
You still do it. Still sit there.
Right, so 2014, I believe, was SteelCon's first year. It was actually quite a phenomenal lineup, and especially for the first year. And I tried to do as much research as I can online about, who talks it or not. If anyone thinks you're missing someone, I apologise. And then 2015, and SteelCon again. You might be annoyed at this slide. It was a smaller list of talkers. That's all I could find. I don't know the reason why. I'm going to make it quite clear here. I, at this point, still had not heard of SteelCon. I was working in a Midlands pen testing firm, and I hadn't heard of it. And I wish I had, but I hadn't. And then my friend I was working with at the time sort of said to me, there's a conference goes on down Sheffield. He goes, you need to come to it. It's brilliant. He goes, I reckon if you submitted a talk, because at the time we were all exploiting things left, right and centre. And he said, I think you've got a chance of being accepted. See if your talk will be accepted and come. So I submitted a talk, and 2016, I was accepted. My first ever talk. I want to quickly talk about a few of these people. I was in here, track 2, my first ever talk, and I've always preferred this room. To me, this is more like a uni room.
You missed Dave. Dave was behind it.
Sorry, Dave. Sorry. I'm always going to upset people. I thought some people would be upset because I'm going to miss people. I apologise, Dave. But, right. So, I saw Holly in here, and then I got to speak to her outside, which was phenomenal. Actually to see people who you've seen on YouTube, and, they get to speak to them. I thought it was brilliant. Dr. Jessica Baker, I sat right in the middle, annoying people with the projector. I was literally sat there in a completely packed out room. It was amazing to see. Scott Helm was on after me, and he came up, and I got to speak to him. That was great. It was just great. Chris, I'm not going to stop without mentioning Chris Truncher at the bottom. Is that how you pronounce his surname? There you go. Right, at that time, I was using a tool called Veal. I have to get it correct. I always call it Veal. Veal. And Chris, the person there, wrote the tool. And the tool allowed you to put any shell code in yourself. So from any C2 or Meterpreter, it would then convert it to a PowerShell script that would bypass, at the time, AV. EDR wasn't really a thing at that point. And it would bypass it. And I was using his tool for 2 years, just every Monday to Friday on jobs. I was using it over and over again just to get past antivirus at the time. And I came to SteelCon, and someone introduced me to him and said, Neil, this is Chris, who wrote Veal. And Neil used it all the time. And I was just starstruck. I was like, hi, I love your tool. And over the years I got to know him. Right, so it was my first year at SteelCon, and this is when you're all going to start thinking this is a bit of an arrogant talk you're doing here. Here I am. So here I was standing here, and it was all at that point about UNC abuse. UNC abuse was SMB abuse, so we would put SMB requests into absolutely everything. And what it meant was any user who executed the SMB request would result in their connection back to Responder, which is a tool that then sends out a broadcast. And what Responder asks for is the domain name, the domain username, and also their password hash. And we would stick it into absolutely everything. And that's what I was talking about. Now, UNC abuse, absolutely amazing. I do have one video just to show people. We don't use it much today, but here you go, this is it working. So go to a share, open the file, double click it, blah, blah, blah. There you go. Still the hash, still the username, and still the domain name. Now, at that time, we were sticking it, like I said, in absolutely everything. This was my favourite ever place. So we've got an index file on a website, and you won't see it because I hid it, and YouTube goes there, but I think on the next slide, there you go, much better. So there's your SMB request in an index file. And at the time, Internet Explorer would execute that. So just someone browsing, I know, shaking the head there, is amazing. I loved it. Just someone browsing your site resulted in you stealing their credentials. And absolutely any credential harvester we had at the time, I'd stick that in. I've always wondered why, at the time, if anyone popped someone's index file on a website, instead of just changing the banner to, we hacked you and all that jazz, why didn't they just put a sneaky one of those in? Because you'd have got millions and millions and millions of credentials. But thankfully the world didn't do that. Right, here's another example. So there you go, inside there, hyperlink in an email. It's not a hyperlink, it's an SMB request, and you just send that to someone. At that time, we discovered that Outlook, if you put an IP address in there, Outlook would pop up a little banner here warning you that that was suspicious. All we did was change that to a domain name, and Outlook was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. You can have an SMB request in your email. One of my friends showed me this technique. Embedding it into a Word document. So what you'd have is, like on page 2, all the way down, there'd remind you little X. You wouldn't be able to serve that page, you wouldn't load it. But what it'd be is an SMB request. They'd open the Word document. Again, you'd steal the credentials. Back at that point, hardly anyone blocked 445 outbound on their firewalls. I don't want to use disrespectful terms, but to say that we were just, how do I word it? Every target we went against at that time, whether they were like a small firm right the way up to some of the largest cloud providers, even networking companies were, falling prey to this. And we were stealing credentials left, right and centre. Just so anyone's aware, some people here will be like, I don't actually know who the hell you are. I work as a pen tester. I now work as a red teamer. I've been pen testing for 15 years. Red teaming alongside that now for 5 or 6 years. When I say, compromising someone, it's all completely ethical and legal. Authorization forms are signed. They come to us. They ask us, what can we do? And this is what we do. And then we then tell them how to fix it. This is an easy fix. Block 445 on the outbound firewall. Right, so pilfer and repeat. That's what we're doing. Profits we're doing over and over again. And that was the year, the after party after my first ever talk. I should tell you, my first ever talk was actually at CrestCon. And I talked a little bit about SMB. Just as I was walking up to the talk, I was in the tube in London, and I stopped. I had to put my hand against the wall. The world was spinning. I felt physically sick, completely sober. It's like 9 a.m. And it was just the scariest ever experience. Someone's grinning. Anyway, the nerves and talking is horrific. A lot of people think, people who talk are kind of arrogant and they just want to show off. Honestly, it is horrific. And we sometimes, I can tell you now, I put 3 months into my preparation. You've got 600 slides, by the way, just so you're aware. I'm notorious for a lot of slides. I'm joking about that. It's 160, I think. So, anyway, party. After the first, that was Steelcom was in fact my second talk. But it was, how do I word this without getting into trouble? I loved the talk. I loved the conference from the word go. And the party, I got to meet so many people. It was like hackers from, there was members of the American, potentially legal teams there. There were people who were potentially going to be extradited or wanted for extradition to America at the parties. It was phenomenal. We got to speak to professionals who work in our industry. We got to speak to people who potentially are not professionals but wanted by agencies. It was phenomenal. And that was when I bumped into Zapperfish. So, Mr. Andy Gill. And he probably, I've spoken to him a few times about this, but he don't remember it. First ever time I met him, we're discussing outside, and we're doing the usual kind of butting heads. We're both arrogant young lads. And we were trying to sort of say, how do you do this? And he'd say, I'll do it this way. I'd go, I'll try it this way. And eventually, he kind of realised that actually I might have a clue what I'm talking about. And we got to the point where we come to swapping blogs. So I gave him my link, and he looked at me and went, there's no way I'm clicking on that, you dodgy bastard. And that was pretty much the end of the conversation. And then over the years, over the conference, the second conference, we became really, really good mates. So, right, we now come on to 2017 Steelcom. And They're probably going to annoy other people here. But yeah, what a lineup. Again, some of the massive people in the industry spoke here. And again, Chris was back. And again, I was starry-eyed talking to Chris. They did a talk about checks, adding checks into payloads. So when you drop a payload, around this time, people were getting savvy to what we were doing and they're trying to stop our fun. So they would start spinning up any documents in sandboxes and they'd be looking for, whether it was malicious. So what Chris did a talk about was how to spot that and how to protect your payloads against it. So if it's spun up in a sandbox, it would fail the check. It wouldn't load, it wouldn't execute. If it's spun up on a domain, if it's spun up on a workgroup, so a machine that's not on a domain, again, the check would fail, so your code wouldn't execute. And it was a really good talk. I really, really liked it. Ironically, after that, all the vendors started, well, not all the vendors, all the kind of people who were creating packers for shellcode, they all started doing very similar things. And like you've got Cobalt Strike today that actually asks you, for the domain and other things. We call it keying now, so we can key the payloads. This was the first year that it was me and Jamie actually. We did a workshop. It's the first ever workshop I've done. We both like the idea of talking to people who don't normally do what we do and giving back and sort of training them. And we took a load of it was probably like 50% students, 50% people in the industry. And we just taught them absolutely everything that we do. This I found online, and I only did it from looking at this talk that I figured it out, or found it. It's basically someone reviewing this. And I like it. It goes here. It's a bit arrogant about to say. This was the workshop I was most looking forward to. Starts off so good. It ends with, yeah, it was entertaining. Especially in the end. But no, I'm glad that I found it. Right, so here I am. I'm back, and I'm talking. And at this point, we had Eternal Blue. So Eternal Blue had launched. If anyone doesn't know the backstory of Eternal Blue, an agency got compromised, a load of tools got released. Off the back of that came Eternal Blue, and we were like, wow, that is an exploit that I think it's, port 445, it would gain you system access on the machine. At the time, it was compromising all the latest and greatest Windows OSs. It was lethal. Now, I don't use exploits, even though I call myself online my exploit and stuff. I exploit functionality. I've always exploited functionality. And I actually discussed this and showed people. And I sort of joked about it at the time because everyone was really excited about it. And I said, you could just rock up on site on an internal, plug your laptop in, get DA. And it was that simple with that exploit. But what I also pointed out was it basically DOSed every box, blue screen. So many, at the start when it first came out, if you were to execute it, the likelihood of it not blue screening your Windows box was like probably 9%. 9% likely it would blue screen the Windows box. And I was sort of just talking about how, it's scary, it's great, but the reality is I would never use it. And actually to date, I've still never used it on an engagement. I've used it in my lab. I've never actually used it on an engagement. Today it was patched against it, obviously. Right, this embarrasses me now. Looking back in history, back at the old YouTube talks, visual talks again, I was back here in track 2. So all the screenshots you see here is me talking at SteelConf, just so anyone thinks what's he doing. It embarrasses me now because there's an attachment in the email. Okay, so around about this time, we were still able to just spin up an SMTP server. There was no checks on the IP addresses to domains with emails. Most people didn't have mail gateways, filters, all of this jazz. We could just spin up an SMTP server on a Linux box and just spoof in an email from absolutely anyone we liked. We could add attachments, and they were getting delivered, and people executed them. The reason why it embarrasses me today, because if you say to a red teamer today, we stuck an attachment in this, we're like, what the hell's that? Attachments haven't worked for ages. You have to put hyperlinks and get the customers to download themselves. That's no longer working. I'll get to the reason why, hopefully, in my talk. So, what I did mention at this year, though, is it was getting, in essence, more complex. I don't like to say the word, it's getting harder. People say it's getting harder. Someone recently said something very clever to me. It's not getting harder, it's getting easier. It's becoming web app testing. Us red teamers are going back to web app testing. It's all in the cloud. We are still looking at internal infrastructure. We do target it. If we can get it, we love it. But the reality is, everyone puts everything in Azure and 365 now. We just get to it from the web. But back then, domain reputation was starting to happen, and SMB was blocked. So our SMB 445 outbound was no longer getting us credentials, and domain reputation meant that our domains were being blocked. People were starting to get savvy to us. And I sort of discussed that social engineering is not always the answer, because up until then we were all like, we social engineer that, we social engineer that. What we discovered around that time was VPN gateways and OWA, I believe in this one, OWA. I'm not going to ask has anyone got OWA still exposed to the internet. Basically, 365 has killed it. But back then, pretty much every single organisation had Microsoft Outlook exposed to the internet. And MFA, multi-factor authentication, was becoming known, but it wasn't really that enforced. So all it took was a username and a password. Usernames and passwords you can generally just find on the internet. If you go looking, if it's a large organisation with like 30 or 40,000 users, someone somewhere's put something they shouldn't somewhere, or they've used their credentials on another site that's been compromised and that data's been released. So you can always find credentials. And you just log in. So you'd log into AWA, and what was even better is you would log into the VPN. But what I'm actually showing you here is I'm using Burp. I had a conversation with Burp earlier, and they asked me, do I ever use Burp? I've been using it for about 10, 15 years. I asked if I could have a t-shirt, and they said no. Apparently I'm going to make a video for them promoting the AI, which is actually very good. Right. So we used to use Burp, we didn't set the request, and we brute force. We don't have a password. Like if we knew the company was called, I don't know, Sunshine One or whatever, we'd make up a word. We would use a password of Sunshine One, and we'd scrape all their email addresses, and we'd insert the request where the username would be, and we'd just inject those usernames which we scraped. You could scrape them from sites like LinkedIn, really easy to do. And we just rotate through all those usernames until we found a password that matched them. Boom, we're in. That is if we couldn't find it in other ways, other methods. And this would then come to VPNs. No MFA at this time, like I just said. We've got a VPN, we've got credentials, we're on the internal network. Sometimes it was ridiculously quick. We could start a test on Monday. An hour or two later, we'd be on the internal network. Great fun times for us. And at that point, one of my friends said to me, stop going to them, make them come to us. And I absolutely love that term. What he said was, let's come up with sites where we basically sell them a service. So they come to us, they create an account, and then we can serve up anything we like, malicious files. So what we've got here is we've got a fake SharePoint Online site. Now, I'm not this one myself. I don't think there was ever a legitimate SharePoint Online site. I just made it. And, the majority of people, I was explaining, when you're exploiting or targeting companies, we work continuously in this field of security. And we think if anything is slightly wrong, we spot it. So we're always paranoid that our targets are going to... I never say the word victim, but I always say targets. We always think that our targets will spot everything. And then I always have to say to everyone, take a step back. Think about our targets. They're just the everyday employees of companies. And think about your family members. Think about your friends that are not in security. Would they spot that? Would they think about that? We try and make everything today as perfect as we possibly can. I sometimes think that's our downfall, actually. I think sometimes it's better to make it a little bit messy. But here we go. We have a fake SharePoint Online site. When anyone logged in with that, we steal the credentials. So that's actually a credential harvester. And then what they get there is served a file, and that file then gives us our remote connection into their organisation. Back then, it probably would have been Interpreter, so Metasploit. It could have also been Empire, could have been POSH2. I don't know at the time what I was using. Also worth noting, that would have had an index file with an SMB cheeky request in it, just in case. 2018, another phenomenal list of talkers, really, really long talk. Talks for me on this year, I really should be careful. I've got to meet Cole, GDPR talk person, really funny guy, really, really liked his talks, really entertaining. Chris Pritchard, I'm going to have to mention Chris. I got to work with Chris at a previous pen testing firm, and a phenomenal guy, really, really good at red teaming, and really good at physical social engineering. And Rob Maslin. Robert Maslin. I worked with him as well, a great C# developer, a great red teamer. So what is incredible is that I've started over the years to become friends with a lot of these people. I've got the luck of getting to work with them, actually. Being able to work with a lot of these people is phenomenal. So Jamie again. Jamie can't make it today, which is really upsetting. I wanted Jamie to be here, but he's busy. He can't make it. Jamie and I did a workshop, and this one was called the Dark Arts. Did anyone here come to the Dark Arts? 2. Thank you. That's great out of a room of, about 90. Great statistic. What fishing today. Jamie and me did a talk on the Dark Arts. And this was the workshop where we just sort of said to everyone, we're going to give you everything we presently have. And we literally gave everything that we pretty much had at that point to the entire room to then use themselves in their own environments. We had pen testers on it, we had students again. A lot of people I've worked with over the years, a lot of time, people will go, oh, I have this super secret tool that we just made. Don't tell the world because it'll get burned. I like it when I've worked at firms and worked with people and said, use it, I want you to burn it. Because if you're developing something on Red Team, and you need to use it. And if you're not using it, what was the point in developing it? So, and here you go, here's the prereqs I found online. I just like the fact it's still there. Okay, the next slide I'm about to show you is a bit embarrassing. This is the slide. I did a talk that year as well. And I was really, I've always been into horror films, and I was really into Rob Zombie at the time. And I thought that was a good idea as my slide. Over the years, I've always tried to make what I think is like quite interesting slides. Frankly, I've never had an employer who said to me, why aren't you using our corporate slides? But, right, so I was discussing on the Dark Arts. The Dark Arts, what this was about, my idea, it was a ridiculous idea that I had. I wanted to sort of demonstrate a real attack from start to finish. And the idea was I was reading, in essence, a story from two adversaries communicating with each other who'd never met. And it seemed like a great idea. I was in track one, so it's the massive room. I was nervous. I hated it. I hate that room. I shouldn't say that. It just makes me too scared. But here I am starting off, and we're still talking about VPNs. We're brute forcing access into a VPN. And then we gain access into the VPN. I've done something. There you go, Cisco VPN. The Metasploit module for brute forcing Cisco SSR VPNs. I've used that. We've gained credentials. We've gone to the VPN. The talk was going really, really well. Up until about halfway through. And then I had this really long bit where these two attackers, made up attackers, were communicating with each other. And I didn't realise. I just kept talking like I am now. Someone should have shut me up. The microphone was humming. And it was humming louder and louder and louder. And all the audience heard was for this whole speech, the whole key point of it. And I came out of it, and Jamie just collared me immediately. What the hell was that? We just had like 10 minutes of you humming. I've always connected that room to problems.
That room's fine.
It's me. It's a layer 8 problem. It is a layer 8 problem.
Skill issue.
It's a layer 8 problem. It's a skill issue, yeah. But the key point of it, what I did do is I talked to the world and said, I talked to the audience and everyone else and said, shorting, right. Just in case people don't know, shorting is when you bet on a firm's share price is going down. So you're buying stocks against them, betting that those share prices are going to come down. Now, I think it's an interesting concept, just a concept of theory, that if you were to compromise a target and then you claim the ransom against them, so the company pays you the ransom, and you give them a bit of simulate, a bit of sensitive documents, and say, here we go, we're going to release this unless you pay us the ransom. They'll pay up the ransom, so you've got the money, and then you double bubble it. You buy shares of the organisation. This is what I suggested these theoretical attackers might have done. Bought shares in a company, and then just released it to the world on Pastebin. Back at the time, people were releasing stuff on Pastebin. At which point the shares go, and their short then comes instantly one. And I sort of said, this is something that people should be thinking about. Thinking that, look at who is shorting organisations. I still think people should be looking at who people are shorting. I think it's very suspicious. Right, 2019. Great year again. Lots and lots of people. Lots of people who I spoke to and probably got, excited and scared and didn't say sensible things. Here I am again, and I'm talking about Dragon. This was, again, back in track one. I actually cried at the start of this. Because at the time, I learned everything I did. I started by working in factories, wrapping cling film around pallets. That was my job. And I worked my way up into offices where I was pushing mail trolleys around in offices and delivering mail to people back in the day. We actually had people who did that. And I went back to college and I studied IT. I was always interested in IT. And then I got YouTube videos. YouTube videos got me through Cisco exams. They got me through hacking, Crest exams, just by telling you processes and techniques on how to do certain things, and you learned. Now today there's all things like Hack the Box and stuff. That wasn't around then. So I'd used YouTube in essence to take me from nothing and get me to the point where I'm studying for you lot today. And at that point, I'd released about 60 videos myself. And people were saying, we like your videos to help me. Some people said, OSCP, they watch my videos to help with the OSCP. None of this is cheating. I'm just saying this is how I use this tool. And that's what I would do. YouTube took it upon themselves to take about 20 of my videos and take them down. And they did it to everyone else at the time. If you looked at hacking at that point, in 2017, I think we are, all the videos disappeared. And they decided that we're evil and we're not going to allow that on YouTube. Ironically, I don't know if anyone feels the same, but I personally think YouTube's become almost unusable today. It's all just adverts, just literally advert after advert after advert. I don't like it anymore. And there you go, people asked, how do you do this with no experience? If you wanted to become a pen tester, I do get asked this question occasionally, I think writing blog posts, get on GitHub, start to release stuff that catches people's attention. I think that's the best way to become a pen tester, if I'm honest. Right. This was the talk I did. Now, the talk was about lots of different processes and stuff, but I got to a point where I spoke about Dave Kennedy's Unicorn. Unicorn was like Veal. I always have to get it right. Veal. But it was like an updated version. Defender AMPC, or Defender, was becoming a thing, and AMPC, the section of Defender which looks in memory and actually looks at the code that's been executed and decides whether that's incorrect, wrong or not, and blocks it if it thinks it's malicious, was becoming a problem, and we were finding it hard to bypass it. Dave Kennedy released a tool called Unicorn, and again, we were feeding our shellcode in. Back then I was using Cobalt, and we were bypassing Defender again. Now, I absolutely love that tool, and I spoke about it, and I asked Dave Kennedy if he ever watched it, and he's like, yeah, he never watched it. So, there I was demonstrating using it, and in my usual typical point, at this point I was quite an arrogant person, I suppose. At this point, I'd used his tool, which is phenomenal, and then I said, how can I make this look better? So I did that. So we got the idea of come to me again, and we have sites, a recruitment site. Recruitment sites are really good. At that point, if you targeted people and said, I'm a recruiter, or if you had fake profiles on recruitment sites, and, I feel bad sometimes. I look back on the stuff we've done in engagements, and stuff I still do this today, by the way. So I say that I feel bad looking back. I can feel bad to last week. But if you go to someone and say, we've found a position for you that we feel is suitable. If you say it's 100% work from home, I feel really evil now. They will do as told. Literally, if you say to them, fill this form in, upload this, do that. So they'll come to your recruitment site, they'll join, they'll log in, they'll register, gives you the account, you've got the password, people password reuse. So there's a good chance you can reuse that password on all their other things that they're connected with. And also then you can serve them a file which downloads. So I was showing there that, there we go, we've got a cheeky SMB request again, and we're stealing hashes, and we're also serving a file. That would have been using Unicorn with my shellcode that I was using to bypass Defender. So what I said in the talk was, I have to try and work this one out myself. Now I'm live. Unicorn, it's a Unicorn, UNC, which is an SMB request, plus remote shells equals hash and hash, basically winning. So we were stealing people's hashes, we were getting a remote shell on their machines, and I was using those tools. And then I like to always occasionally put tweets in that I see at the time. This was a tweet from that time, and the person was saying, if you're an antivirus vendor, people are still talking about antivirus, not EDR at this point. And they were saying, if you're not using AMPC, so we weren't using Microsoft's AMPC, Think McFly. Basically, any antivirus that wasn't using AMPC at this point, we were just walking past. Any antivirus that was starting to use AMPC, we were having to use things like Unicorn to get around. Now, I like to, over the years, finish my talks generally with something that I think is funky, something that I'm sort of messing around with. This is what my friend would describe as ghetto code. This was pre-AI, so I sound like I'm in the dark ages now. I have just time-stamped myself. It's hideous what I did here, but it did amuse me at the time. That bit at the bottom, I'm not even going to explain to you why it's like that, because I would be ashamed. Code roasting at the time was something that we used to do quite a bit. So any user, domain user, by default permissions, can ask for a request for the service accounts and their correlating password hash. Service accounts at the time generally had bad passwords, and they also generally belonged to the domain admin group, which meant that you had keys to the castle very quickly just from requesting a copy of these service accounts. So I, in my great wisdom, thought, I want to try and automate that just for a giggle. So I stuck it into a PowerShell one-liner, included after that section on code roasting, a one-liner then that span up an SMTP server on the compromised machine, and I hate to say this bit, hard-coded credentials, then emailed that out to you. So anyone that executed this on their machine would code roast on your behalf, and then the results would then be emailed out to you. I also talked at the end of the conference, the end of the thing, about how I wrote a script as well. Again, really awful. ChatGPT would have like 3 lines done. Boom. That was some botched up thing I did at the time to make it work. What that did was it took the PowerShell one-liner and converted it to a VBA macro, so you could include it in like a Word document or an Excel document, so they just hit enable macros and boom, they'd curve roasted on behalf of you, emailed you results. There's lots of reasons why it was stupid, but I like the idea that I could try and do it. And yeah, I did, so I demoed it and it worked. I then decided, could I push it further? It gets worse. Could I also capture members belonging to the domain admin group, hashes, enumerate all the machines, all the users, do absolutely everything? And the reality is, could we also find local admin, can we find out the shares, can we do absolutely everything, and do it all from one click? Yes, so here it is. So what this is doing here is basically using, I believe it's PowerView back in the day. No, it's not, it's just PowerShell functionality actually and stuff, requesting all of that information. And sent it, and there you go, here's all the returned documents. I was very happy, I did get a clap, which surprises me now. And then we discussed about Windows 7 and Windows 10, because at this point, Windows 10 wasn't a majority of users. Now today, it would be Windows 11, Windows 10, but that's today. At that point, Windows 10 was being spoken about, everyone was talking about AMSI bypasses. And I was intrigued to whether it would work against a fully updated Windows 10 box with AMSI. Now, this wasn't using anyone else's tool. It was just the script I just wrote. And I tried it. And, yeah, with AMSI, with Defender enabled, boom, got the results. And so, yes, it worked. And I was showing them the work. And that was the end of that talk. And then it all stopped for everyone. And this is the bit I thought I might cry. And I was wobbling a little bit. We all know, or we all have, relatives that died during this moment. The world stopped, literally stopped. We thought, at the very, very start, the very first couple of weeks, couple of days, we'd be okay. Our work's always been remote. What we didn't take into account is our clients would be working in the offices to book the tests. So our work dried up. We all sat around, did nothing. I personally lost my dad during this period. And it was, welling up a bit. It was horrific. I'm just going to take a quick, I don't normally drink during conferences. It was very hard for everyone. We all know it's very hard. It killed SteelCon. I'm going to say it now. As it didn't kill Steel, it killed it for that year. But I've always thought of SteelCon as our unofficial kind of holiday, Pentesters holiday. You know, we all get excited about it leading up to it. We all arrange it. We all talk about where we're staying, we all know where we're drinking. We all get excited. Who's coming, who's not. And leading up to this, it was a pie every year. And this happened. And we didn't meet up that year, so it was hard. And then it happened, I'll jump forwards. Yeah, so 20 and 21 was COVID, and that was it, yeah. Thankfully, 2022, it was back. Hey, party again. And, during COVID, something broke inside me a little bit. I still do my job absolutely fine. I still attack absolutely everything I'm targeted at, and I still compromise everything and win every time. But my confidence, which I've just given that, and now inside I became a shaking leaf. I got very, very, but it came back, and Andy said, you need to get back on the horse and talk. And I said, I don't want it. And he said, we'll do it together. We'll talk together. So me and Andy planned a talk together, and we presented that. But like that year, it was phenomenal again. Rich Hicks I've worked with, great bloke. Dave Lodge I've worked with, great bloke. Chris Pritchard, I have massive love for Chris Pritchard. I know I said that earlier, but I'll say it again. There's just so many great people. Sadie, I worked with Sadie as well, and I've worked with a lot of testers over this. It's phenomenal. It was great to see Sadie, do a talk. What generally happens with some people, no one here, I'm not going to take glory for this, but I work with people and I go, yeah, you should do a talk at SteelCon, do a talk at this conference, do a talk at that conference. And I just basically kind of encourage a lot of people to basically do things I probably shouldn't encourage people to do, because it is stress work, stress. Okay, mine and Andy's talk. Yes, let's discuss this. Surprise, surprise, not me, not blaming anyone, but you have to sign in to watch it because of that. Never swears. And I had a look, while doing a bit of research on this, I thought I need screenshots from it, which admits I have never watched it back. I tell you what, I don't like to watch my talks back generally. But who the hell would like to watch themselves? It's weird. But I wanted to have a look at this. Right, so YouTube is asking you for your ID, a selfie, or a credit card to watch our video. Which, it gets better. 25 people have liked it. So at least 25 people have watched it. 813 views. So I'm surprised 813 have managed to watch the thing. But I did find a way around it. I did not use any of them techniques, but I'm not going to tell you how. And here's the shots from our talk. So what the talk was about, the idea was, again, the concept of talking about an attack from the start to the end. And we discussed the different approaches, access foothold, lateral movement, privileged escalation, all that jazz. Using bloodhounds, and he did a load of stuff on bloodhound at the time. He was really into writing custom queries and stuff. We got to the point where we got to the domain controller, and fantastic. Yeah, dumped the ntds.dit, which is all the hashes on the domain controller, which, by the way, we don't do on the job. Years ago, we would have been tempted to do it today. That's really dirty. If you do that on the job, if you're a pen tester and you think, why is that bad? Or if your pen tester has done a job for you and dumped the ntds.dit and said, here you go. Rightfully, you should turn around to them and say, well, I now need to change every single password for all my 3,000 users. Cheers, mate. So, we don't do that anymore, but we wanted to show the process of how it could be to that stage. Right, 2023. Worth noting, by the way, we're back here because I said to Andy, there is no way I'm talking in track one. There was a little bit of discussion about that. We should have been in track one, but as in, I didn't want to speak there. Andy would have liked to speak there. Right, so 2023, we're back again. Me and Andy doing a talk this time, and it was supposed to be a lot smoother this time. This is track one, mate. This is the problem with track one. It's another thing with track one. So we did a workshop, and the workshop was phenomenal. And until Andy spent months building a lab. Now, we've worked on this together, but Andy did the physical grunt work of building this lab. He bought the machines, he built the lab, we took it down, we plugged it in, someone crypto-locked it. They literally crypto-locked it. Like, we were supposed to stand there and clap. Typical style, Andy went absolutely ballistic. Because, rightly so, we were going to use it the next day on our talk, a track one, as in, it's always jinxed. Right, so, yeah, Andy had to build it. This talk here, which we're about to say, which I'm about to talk through, we were supposed to do, I think, second talk. We ended up having to do it in the afternoon. Thankfully, other people took the position for us and said, yeah, I'll take your slot. Me and Andy were over in the hotel. Andy was there, typing away, rebuilding the lab. I just had to sort of hope he was okay. The stress. Red teamers, by the way, people don't understand that when, our position red teaming, people when they say, I want to be a red teamer, I want to be a red teamer, it is the most stressful position, I think. Possibly in security. There'll be someone in security who goes, that's not true. I'm a lot more stressed than you lot. But it is a very stressful position. And these kind of things, building things on the fly, we have to do day in, day out. Literally day in, day out. But what a surprise, the conference, there was a ton of that. When we finally got, it was an unbelievable level of that this year.
We did it live as well.
We did it live. Yeah, it was completely live. There was no slides. It was a complete walkthrough this time, 100% live. We demoed loads of tools that we both had released, we released them at that talk. We released about 5 or 6 tools that we built ourselves and we use on the job. But there was a lot of sparing. There's balloons, which were brought down the front. I've got tissues this time in case I cry. Below there's balloons. So towards the end, we were having squeaky voices. Everyone follows Zapper on Twitter, but if you don't, there is his handle. He should be followed. Yes, it became a drinking game. The talk did. Every time there was a square, there were people at the front taking shots, which was quite funny. So we talked through the compromise, VPN access in, and then we talked about one of the tools we created, which is an enumeration tool for the internal domain, and it uses LDAP, so it blends in. It looks like legitimate traffic. We talked a bit more about it. And we also talked about another tool, which this I liked. This it was a password sprayer, but for internal use. And loads of people have written password sprayers before, but this just automated the whole process. It would look up the actual user. If the password matched, it would look them up using LDAP. It would then output that. It would then tell you any of the high integrity groups, like is it a domain, is it a member of domain admins? It'd output it all for you. Really, really nice. It's really quick, really quick. Actually, development-wise, I've changed a little bit recently because sometimes I'll show these tools to people, or Andy will write something, or me and Andy we'll both say, oh, that's great, fantastic, let's keep going. And we'll show it to someone else and they go, what the hell is that? Red team is about being slow. This is multi-threaded. The whole idea is to just do it as quick as it possibly can. It does it in probably about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds maybe on a typical domain. Where in red teaming, you'd want to spread that over probably about 36 hours or something. Right. So, 2024, we're coming up to last year. And do I have much time left? Anyway, 20 minutes, fantastic. Right, 2024. People at the talk again. I won't keep mentioning people's names and talks I've been to, but I do try and go to as many talks as I possibly can. Chris Pritchard's talk. I've included this because I really like the talk. And I took my daughter to the conference, who's here today, and she really liked this talk, and she told me that she liked it. And I told Chris that, and he loved it. He loved that. He was talking about breaking into buildings. Chris talks a lot about breaking into buildings. People think he's probably just physical security. I've worked on red teams with him. He's just as good. He's a phenomenal red teamer from a technical perspective. He just likes breaking into things physically. Right, everything was going well. I was on next after Chris, and I'm in track 1, and I'm on my own. Should never be left on my own in track 1. Here I am trying to plug my laptop in. Now, I was using a different laptop. I was using my All Swinging and Dancing gaming laptop, which I was really proud that I finally bought a gaming laptop. I finally got a cool bit of kit. And what you're about to see here is the timeline of panic. Boom. How many technicians, engineers does it take to get my laptop connected to HDMI? I was mocked about this on Twitter, which I deserved. Neil doesn't HDMI. But I plugged the laptop in, it would not play ball with the projector at all. 15 minutes the talk went late. It was going to be, Chris Pritchard actually helped me. He said, after a bit, he said, stop messing around, use my laptop. So at the last minute, at this point to this point, we're moving everything over to his laptop so I could use it, which he saved the day. But it was supposed to be a really good talk. I was really proud. It was all about hunting for things. And it's about finding an absolute needle in a haystack on an internal domain. I know that on every job I do, every corporation target we go against, there's something on the shares that shouldn't be there. Normally it's credentials. Normally it's credentials belonging to local admin groups or domain admin groups, but it's also all the confidential, squishy data, as I call it, the stuff that's personal to them, the stuff that they really don't want you to be able to see, the critical stuff. It's all just open to shares. So I did an entire talk on how to get access to the entire of that. It's just using Windows Explorer. I'm a real big fan of Windows Explorer. People go, what's your favourite pen testing tool? Mine are probably Windows Explorer. Right, yeah, there's Chris, there's his handle. Save the day. Right, so it brings me up to now. That talk didn't quite happen. So I'm hoping 2025 hunt. As I said earlier, I like to end on things that I think are pretty cool. They're not always the most super technical, but I like to just show things that I think I'm interested in. Right, these days, I spend a large chunk of my time. Red teaming is reading lots of stuff. Andy said that to me. It's about reading your target, finding out about them. Reconnaissance, looking for everything online, try and find out as much as you can. Once you gain a foothold, it's then looking at their services that they have. It's about blending in and acting normal. It's not about going after domain admin anymore. It's about trying to see what their business stuff is, what would affect them if it was compromised. That's what it's about. And I probably spend more time these days looking at SharePoint than really anything else. The internal network has become the external network. We came back to my comment a minute ago at the start where I said that someone said to me, it's possibly getting easier because it's all like web app testing today. We're looking at apps, we're looking at SharePoint and things like that. So here we have SharePoint. Now, SharePoint, I started having a look at how we can search for stuff in SharePoint because what people do is they're taking their internal shares and shoved it on SharePoint. And a lot of the time, they haven't actually considered permissions. So absolutely everyone can look at things now they shouldn't have even been able to look at on the original internal share. They can now see it on the SharePoint. So you just go to the search box and you type in, let's say, passwords. Now, on an engagement, I will do this at the start, but very quickly we start looking at things like confidential, secret, sensitive, stuff like that, and other more interesting searches. But if you see here, passwords instantly never hit. Now, this is my own SharePoint lab that I built to simulate what we see in the real world, but this is what we see. So you'll see credentials, there we go, user password there, blah, 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 password, hit. When I first started looking at SharePoint, I was very, very interested in when you open any of these documents, you get like a mark at the top, and it shows who's opened it, the time they've opened it, and it shows you on your own, like the screen, you can see the previously opened files. Now, for someone like me, that's scary as hell. That's hideous. My brain thinks over the top. I get super paranoid. Is the client going to see every single file I've opened? Are they going to ask me why I've opened them? Are they going to be like, what are you doing? I just get too paranoid. as someone who's trying to simulate the stealthy person, we try and hide everything we possibly can. We explain how we've hidden it afterwards, we explain what we've done, but we like to hide it as we go along. So I tried to find a new technique to open documents, and I thought that really clever. It's preview tab, so you right-click there, you go to open file location, and then you click on preview. Now, preview tab in Explorer will allow you to see a section, will allow you to see the file without actually opening it. Now, Andy Gill taught me that. So you can open files on people's internal shares by just using the preview. Now, in SharePoint, if you do it, my friend pointed out to me, because I was telling him, well, this is great, you can do this again. He said to me, don't use preview. What it does is, it still marks it. So even though you've done it in preview, I doubt they got smart and thought, we'll stop that. I think it's just a fluke, or just the way it functions, how how SharePoint functions. It does mark it still. So I went back to the drawing board, and this is a method that I discovered myself, and you can't see it to cut off there. But if you click on a file and you click details, you get this. Now, it's quite a blurry image. But it gives you a little preview snapshot of the file. Now, yeah, it's hard to read. So, what you do is you open up Inspect, and you won't see it here, but there's the web link to the preview file, and in it is the height and the width of the file. Now, if you take that and copy it, so what was that? Make it bigger. Thank you. You've ruined it. Thank you. I've got one more after now. I've got one more after. So, right. That is redacted because I don't want anyone getting access to my SharePoint. But like there is the bottom in yellow. So all you do, make it bigger, which it is what I discovered. Boom. It's actually quite a high-def picture they're using for the little thumbnail. So all you do is you make it bigger, make it as big as you like, and here's some other examples. So without opening the file now, we're just browsing a link, and there we go, we're seeing a preview of the file. We're reading credentials again without any mark whatsoever. So I was quite happy with that. And then people ask, how do you fix the permissions? Well, right, these are to remind me, by the way. These are from the, Jack, I can't remember his surname, from PTP, released a blog post recently, which was really good, where he uses Copilot to, in theory, open files on SharePoint that you don't have permission to do. I haven't tried it yet myself. I will do, but apparently if you ask Copilot to open a file, it'll just open it. Right, this I discovered, and some people are going to think, I'm not sure. It worked in my lab. I've used it in the wild. It works. I'm not suggesting it's going to work every single time, but it's definitely worked for me. So, right, do a search for password again. Now, what you're seeing here is a little preview of it. Now, it only gives you a little snippet. It'll give you the file that's matched, but it won't necessarily give you the keyword that matched. So, you've got this snippet. So I realised, if you just say copy that bit, and then put that in, it's really bad, isn't it? People are realising what's going on here. It then shows you a little bit more. So you copy a little bit more. It shows you a little bit more. And you just keep going and going until you get, there you go, username, admin. At this point, you might want to take a bit of a jump, a bit of a guess, and try some different combinations yourself. There's nothing stopping you just trying layers and just seeing if any of it hits. Wait for the alphabet, it's not that long. And there you go. So those are the credentials revealed to you from SharePoint document, just literally copying and pasting. When I do stuff like that and I put it in a report, the clients are like, what? And like, we hate you. How would you fix that? You talk to Microsoft. Right. So how long until that replaces us? I actually, I asked AI, as you do, how long? It replied, basically, it's going to displace. I hate the word displace. That's such a fluffy word for 85 people are going to lose their jobs. Just 85 million. Sorry. Yeah, 85 million. Yeah, there you go. I prefer 85, but no, 85 million are going to lose jobs across 15 industrial sectors, 25 economies. But apparently 97 million new roles are going to be created. My hope is that they are equal salaries. It's very easy to throw a mathematical statement out, but we don't know what that is going to affect on us yet. What I am going to say is I absolutely love AI. My ghetto coding has gone from ghetto coding to, I'm releasing stuff that I wouldn't, or writing stuff that I shouldn't be writing. And I love it. I use ChatGPT still, and I use Google's Gemini. Is it Google Gemini? What I found is between them, you can do monstrous things. It's absolutely phenomenal. It always says to you, like, No, I think that's malicious. It's in a lab, it's okay. Okay. So, right, advice for red teamers. I asked it for, I shouldn't just care about my own sector, but I asked it, are us red teamers in danger? And basically it says no. It says, as long as you continue to embrace AI, it's like a dealer, isn't it? You're going to be no, but I do believe it. I do agree with it. I see AI presently as like a power loader, and we can lift up a lot more from it, and we should be using it, embracing it as much as we could. I did a talk at my daughter's school about 3 years ago, and I said to all the students going into their GCSEs, use AI, use ChatGPT. I'm like, what's that, man? It'll do stuff for you. And they're like, what? It'll write essays for you. It'll tell you, it'll mark your work and do this. And they're like, and then the teachers sent home a letter, saying, parents, please do not tell students to use AI. It is cheating. But in all honesty, I think we should all be using it all the time. Right. Probably had something else to say there, but I forgot. Right. This is the first time publicly I've said this. I'm Neil Lyons. I work for NCC, part of the FSAS team, which I'm very proud to work for. A phenomenally talented bunch of red teamers. And that's what I do day in, day out, is red teaming. Every time I finish my talks, I've always done my Twitter thing, arrogance. So these are them over the years. Which tells you it's coming to the end, you're going to get your lunch in a minute. And there you go, that's the last slide. Thank you, everyone.